I want to go ahead and look at moving into week 4. Some of our red flag teams. What are some of our teams that have potential playoff aspirations that we're kind of putting a red flag on right now, right? And this could be obvious. This could be, hey, I don't think we've talked about them, but they're kind of playing a little suspicious going forward. Any one of those, Drew, that we can go ahead and bring up. I want to go ahead and start it off just because we're going to start off with my team. The Dallas Cowboys, they don't get like a little tiny red flag from me. I already said in past episodes, if you know me, you know I'm a pessimistic fan. And I'm the biggest pessimistic fan up to this point. The Dallas Cowboys have surrendered 72 points and nearly 900 yards in the last 2 weeks. Again, we're excluding Cleveland. Just this last game, they only recorded 8 pressures. Micah was responsible for 4 of them. DeMarcus Lawrence had a 0% pass rush win percentage. Lamar Jackson's tight window throw percentage was 0%. And then in the week prior... 0%. And in the week prior, only recorded 5 pressures in week 2. Micah was responsible for 3 of them. And then I want to know what happened to the whole conversation of Micah being played linebacker and he's going to be moved all around when in week 2, 43 out of the 44 snaps on defense for Micah, he played on the defensive line exclusively. Running the ball has been the hardest thing to ever watch. It's been horrid. Running backs haven't even come close to combining for 100 ground yards in the 3 games so far. We broke 100 yards in week 1, but that's because CD had like 35 yards rushing as well on like 2 rushes. So, and then Dak had some rushing yards as well, but overall those guys had like 60 yards together when it came to Dowdle and Zeke. Per the next gen stats, the Cowboys have picked up minus 74 rushing yards over expectation through 3 games, which is 3rd worst in the NFL behind a aforementioned Chicago and actually Miami as well. So I have huge questions about this Dallas team. I do not personally put any stock into that 4th quarter. Congrats, you got the team going and you got us really close to tying or winning the ball game. I personally don't give a shit because you should have gotten that ball rolling for the first 4 or the first 3 quarters of the game, and we wouldn't have been inside of that position. So big questions, obviously, outside of the Cleveland game, which I already said the Cleveland game was not very good defensively. I don't really care about it because you're going against backup tackles and Deshaun Watson against the Cleveland Browns. I'm not really, putting a lot of stock into it, but we played well offensively. And then now all of a sudden we can't do anything offensively running the ball. And we don't look very good. So, and then Jerry Jones is still out here being like, I don't see what the problem is. We look pretty good and, we're all in. And, so again, the Dallas Cowboys, they get a massive red flag for me. I'm not excited to watch this team. I was already pessimistic leading into the season. And I wasn't excited. If you listen to if you're listening to the full episode, you already heard the top 10 segment. But if you're watching the clip exclusively on the top 10 power rankings, the Dallas Cowboys didn't even just miss the cut. They're way outside of the cut for me. They're going to be landing like right dead in the middle of the league of 15, 16, somewhere around their ballpark. So New York Giants this week, tomorrow specifically, as we talked about this. But if we come out with a win, I'm not going to start shitting my pants and jumping up and down and being really excited all the time. I'm going to go, congratulations, you took care of business and you went in there and you won. I'm not losing my mind over it. So the upcoming opponents as well. You have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are undefeated up to this point. You have the Lions, who have high hopes in. We have the unfortunate San Francisco 49ers, the Atlanta Falcons, Philly, Texans, Commanders, Giants again, Bengals, Panthers, Bucks, Eagles, Commanders. There's only a handful of really easy win games. It should be really easy win games in there. Outside of that, the schedule is not looking very kind to us. So I'm not so sure of where we're sitting, especially Philly is playing half decent, and then Washington is 2-1 somehow. But yeah, so again, massive red flag on the Dallas Cowboys.
Do you remember when I blew up your dad in the Snapchat, calling him an idiot because he said he thought the Commanders could finish 2nd in the division? Now we were talking about the Eagles being 3rd, the Cowboys being 3rd, but I was like, the Commanders. Although I will shout out Mr. Drew Taylor, pat on the back, because I was telling you in the offseason about Adam Peters and them bringing a legit presence to the Washington franchise. So
Yep.
I just have one question for you until we move on to my pretender. Did you see Jerry Jones this week talking about how you guys couldn't afford Derrick Henry?
I did. I also saw him talk about people.
You guys know you have $26 million in cap space, right?
Yep. And it's not even at the time either. Like we could have cleared up
Just
like
curious.
$5 million from Dak's bonus by signing him. And then we had another $5 million we could have cleared outside of that too. But, that's neither here nor there. Jerry Jones is too busy talking about who we can or cannot afford when we actually can. Game is passing by. And then he's on, Instagram Live with Jamie Foxx talking about players' dicks and whatnot. So
that was a couple years old. That was a couple years old.
Go ahead. Who's next for your red flag team?
All right. I know y'all are going to hate me for this. I know you guys are coming, but I'm going to go ahead and red flag the New Orleans Saints here. They came out and were world beaters for 2 weeks, and then Derek Carr turned into a pumpkin, and he looked like his typical Derek Carr self in week 3. Here's the thing with the New Orleans Saints. They ran absolutely zero motion, zero anything exciting on offense last year. They did absolutely nothing. And I feel like a lot of that caught teams off guard in week 1, week 2. Kamara obviously ran all over the Dallas Cowboys. But here's the thing. Now that there's been a couple of weeks of tape, it's same a little bit of my concern with the Dolphins. I'm sorry, not the Dolphins, the Vikings. Now that there's tape out on these players and they're going to start to get each team's best shot, I am not 100% sure if I see the New Orleans Saints staying on the tear that they're on. Obviously, when it comes to their division, Tampa Bay, Atlanta has a ton of talent. I don't really hold anything against Atlanta losing to the Chiefs. I think even in the preseason when we did the predictions, we expected them to lose to the Chiefs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this really just comes down to whether I believe that Derek Carr is going to continue on this resurgence or Baker Mayfield is just going to continue to be a serviceable quarterback like he has, and can Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons pick up wins. So I just think by the time the season ends, you might see New Orleans third in that division in wins, and that's not going to be enough to make the playoffs. So they are a little bit of a suspicion for me. But outside of that, obviously, Dallas, the 49ers, they're really suspicious right now. And then honestly, I'd say the Seattle Seahawks, but we didn't even put them in our top 10 yet. So I don't think anyone's really taking them seriously.
No, not up to this point. I think that the last one that we can go ahead and talk about is the team that beat Dallas. And I still think that they still have red flags about them. So I don't think that Baltimore should get too excited up to this point. But the Ravens, they opened the season with a 27-20 loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. Pretty unfortunate, if Isaiah Likely had, shoe size 2 less than what he has, and they actually would have probably won that game. But they surrendered. You talked about it. In week 2, they squandered a 10-point lead against the Raiders. The Ravens had a NFL top rushing attack last season, and they're supposed to be even better with Derrick Henry. And it's, been an adjustment, obviously, for Derrick Henry in the way he plays, being a north to south runner. And he doesn't play a lot out of like the pistol or likes to play a lot out of the I formation. So it's a little bit strange for him to be there, but he has. But he's only managed before playing the Dallas Cowboys was 130 yards and 2 touchdowns over 2 games. And then obviously blew up against the Cowboys, but I'm not putting a lot of stock over beating up against a piss poor running defense in the Dallas Cowboys at this point. The Ravens were 0-2 after 2 weeks. They ranked dead last, 32 out of 32 in passing yards allowed per game. And then they allowed a 76% completion percentage through the first 2 weeks as well. So also Lamar Jackson being almost under constant pressure behind the offensive line with 3 new starters, only really retaining Tyler Linderbaum and then Ronnie Stanley. And then the rest of the offensive linemen are brand new. And then you also have right guard Daniel Falele, who I remember coming out. I wasn't a big fan of Daniel Falele, who's ranked pretty low on the offensive lineman list. Yeah, Daniel Falele. He was actually a tackle, I'm pretty sure, coming out, and I really didn't like him then. And obviously switching to guard is probably the right decision. But yeah, struggling in the run blocking is what Baltimore is supposed to be good at, and that's what he's struggling at this point. So Baltimore has a lot of questions. Yes, you just beat Dallas. I would pump your brakes a little bit because, again, not the biggest Dallas supporter over here, even though I wear their merch and it's tattooed on me and fuck Jerry Jones, all that stuff. So, but I would put a red flag on them.
There's a Colts fan at work that watches our podcast, and he fills me on not being able to pronounce these names. So he always comes up to me and he goes, "Did you see Latu times 2?" And I'm like, "Latu times 2?" He's like, "Yeah, Latu." And I'm like, yeah, I saw Latu. He got his sack. I'm super happy. Yeah, Latu times 2. And he walks away from me. I'm like, all right, I feel it.
Right.
That's why I just say the rookie offensive tackle for the Saints. That's why I don't run around and try to say their names, because people apparently hate that and bombard our podcast with negative things about me when I don't say people's names right.
Yeah, how could you not shy? Was there any other teams that you wanted to go ahead and red flag before we move on to our upset of the week?
The thing about it is it's still early.
Oh yeah.
The Ravens might get a red flag after this week. Obviously, they got to play the Bills. Who else is out there? I'm not going to say what the other team that might get a red flag, because I may be eyeballing them for my upset of the week. So I'll just let it move on from there.